Do you know what really happens when a WWE star gets injured for real? We've all seen fake injuries in WWE history, but at Over the Limit 2010, things got real. At that event, Randy Orton was facing Edge, and right in the middle of the match, he accidentally dislocated his shoulder. Immediately, the referee threw up the signal for a real injury, but Orton didn't want to stop. He kept going even with one arm. You probably would ask why. Because if he quit, Edge would win, and Orton would lose his long championship. So because of that, he quickly came up with a plan and told everything to Edge, who then passed it to the referee. Later, when the match restarted, Edge tossed Orton into the barricade, charged full speed for the spear, and purposely missed. Both hit the ground hard. The referee starts counting all the way to 10. The match ends because of double countout, and Orton keeps his legacy alive while injured. Have you ever wondered why Bianca turned her braid into a f***ing weapon? In 2016, when Bianca Belair first stepped into a WWE ring, she was figuring out what would make her stand out from other female wrestlers. That's when her husband encouraged her to embrace the braid, believing it could help her stand out from everyone else. Then one day during training session, one of her coaches looked at the braid and asked, "Have you ever thought about using that as a weapon?" At first, she laughed, thinking it was all a joke, but the idea stayed in her head. Then, in WrestleMania 37, Bianca was in the main event against Sasha Banks, when, for the first time, she decided to use her braid in the middle of the match. Did you know there's a hidden disqualification rule in wrestling that no one dares to explain? We all know what happens when a male wrestler gets hit below the belt, but do you know what really happens when a woman does the same thing to another woman? WWE in its history didn't even try to hide it. Simply, it just never happened. Until one day in 2019, we finally got the answer for that. Have you ever wondered why John Cena always waves his hand and says, "You can't see me"? It all started when Cena was putting together his theme song. Cena wanted a clear feedback from his younger brother, but instead of saying anything, his brother started waving his hand in front of his face, making fun of Cena. At first, John laughed and said, "What the hell is that ridiculous move?" But then his brother made a challenge he couldn't ignore. He told John, "If you're serious about your WWE career, then do that on live TV." Without any hesitation, Cena accepted his challenge. He dropped the move in front of the whole world, but unfortunately, it barely got any reaction. A few seconds later, he dropped the move again, but this time Cena knew exactly how to turn that into something bigger. So after the move, he dropped a phrase no one would ever forget. Have you ever wondered why Triple H always covers his sledgehammer during a move? In 2001, every top-performing wrestler had an iconic move or prop that would set him apart. But unfortunately, Triple H didn't have anything like that yet. That's when Vince McMahon decided to give him a fake sledgehammer, the perfect way to make attacks look real without hurting anyone. But one night at WrestleMania 17, something went terribly wrong. During the match, Undertaker had full control over Triple H. At one point, he lifted him up, and it looked like the end was near. But then out of nowhere, Triple H reached for the sledgehammer and straight slammed Taker's head, and in a matter of seconds, blood started pouring from his head everywhere. After that, WWE thought if the fake hammer could still cause injuries, he might as well use the real one, and from that moment on, he started covering the hammer's head with his hand. Everyone credits Ray for this move, but did you know he didn't even create it? As all the fans know, the 619 is the move that made him a legend. But behind it, there's a wild story no one talks about. It all started in the underground rings of Tijuana, where a masked high flyer named Super Astro would slide through the ropes to showcase his incredible agility. Later, when Ray made his way to Japan, he saw a similar move performed by none other than legendary Tiger Mask. But everything changed when Ray brought that idea back home and showed it to his friend Damien 666, who suggested turning it into an actual move rather than just a way to show off his agility. And that single suggestion turned a rope trick into one of the most iconic finishers in wrestling history. Why did the referee count the pin and declare Becky Lynch the winner, even though Ronda's arm clearly wasn't touching the mat? In the final moments of the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania, a massive controversy erupted. Because after a 20-minute brawl, Ronda finally went for her Piper's Pit, and in a split second, Becky reversed it into a crucifix pin as the referee dropped down for the count. If you watch the replay, Ronda's shoulder clearly came off the mat before the referee's hand ever hit 3, and by the rules, that's a kickout that should have stopped the count instantly. But unfortunately, the referee was so lost in the moment that he never even saw it and slammed the mat for 3. And here's the wild part. Backstage, Vince was reportedly furious at the referee for counting instead of breaking the pin. But in the end, Becky walked away as the first ever Becky Two Belts, making history. Most fans assume that Stomp during Rhea's entrance is nothing more than just a part of her character. But the truth is, it's actually a silent tribute to Mitch Lucker, the lead singer of Suicide Silence. And according to Rhea, he had one of the biggest influences in her life, which is why many believe that Stomp is her way of keeping his memory going. This moment made Undertaker a legend. But did you know it all happened by mistake? In 1991, during a match between The Undertaker and Greg Valentine, something strange happened. At that event, when Undertaker had Valentine in a chokehold, his long hair fell into his face, blocking his vision. Taker, not wanting to lose focus, quickly whipped his hair back, and as he did, his eyes rolled into the back of his head, and in that moment he thought, what if I just hold them there a little longer? And from that moment on, it became his iconic move. Have you ever wondered why some wrestlers always have wet hair before walking out to the ring? Most fans think it's just to look cool, but the truth is way more clever than anyone imagined. When a wrestler receives a punch, wet hair whips around, making every single move look even more nasty. But that's not even the real reason. What most fans didn't realize is that wrestling rings during a spotlight get insanely hot, and usually one single drop of sweat in the wrong spot can turn a match around in a matter of seconds. That's why legends like Triple H don't just wet their hair, they also pour water on themselves while walking into the ring. Are thumbtacks used in WWE real or fake? The truth behind it is actually shocking, because every time you see a wrestler land in them, you immediately assume that there has to be something softer underneath, the same way chairs and ladders are modified to hurt less. For years, even the wrestlers thought the same way, before they experienced it for themselves. For instance, before his match against Mick Foley at Backlash 2004, Randy Orton was convinced he could handle it. But the moment Mick countered his RKO and threw him straight into that pile, the look on his face said it all. Because unlike almost every other weapon in that ring, these ones were actually real. Why did Rhea Ripley appear in a white outfit, even though for years it was strictly forbidden? For a long time, white gear was basically a curse in WWE, because according to fans, Vince personally believed it made wrestlers look soft on camera, and besides that, it could get very messy in a matter of seconds. And that's why for all those years, you could rarely see anyone wearing it. Until one day at WrestleMania in Vegas, Rhea Ripley decided to shock everyone by stepping into the ring in a full white gear. There's no official confirmation why, but fans immediately started speculating, and it turns out that Rhea had planned to match her gear with Io Sky for their potential tag team run, which unfortunately didn't happen. Have you ever wondered how wrestlers always know the next move without saying anything? As many fans know, a quick tap or whisper helps them stay on track and avoid many unnecessary injuries. But did you know that all wrestlers have their own secret way of warning their opponents? Let's take Edge for instance. Before hitting his legendary spear, he's known to tug the opponent's wrist. If it doesn't happen, the move gets delayed. Now watch Roman Reigns during his Superman punch. Before the move, he'll tighten his grip during the setup or waits for his opponent to move. If they don't move, he holds back. Another great example can be Big Show. Before his well-known chokeslam, he'll give a quick lift. In this way, he's signaling it's time to jump. If the setup goes wrong, Big Show ends up walking forward looking confused. Did you know that Triple H's WrestleMania entrance was hiding a secret that nobody talked about? At WrestleMania 30, Triple H made one of the most iconic entrances by walking to the ring in a king's gear, walking with three mysterious women beside him. For years, nobody understood why Triple H chose them to be part of his legendary entrance. Until one day, he revealed that those three women were Alexa Bliss, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks, who at that time were just starting their careers. And right after the show, Triple H pulled them aside and told them that they should get used to wrestling entrances, because one day they'd all be standing on that same stage having their own WrestleMania moment. And years later, all three reached that stage. Did you know WWE hid CM Punk's return so well that even the commentators didn't know until his music hit? For nearly a decade, CM Punk and WWE had one of the most bitter breakups in all of wrestling. At first in 2014, Punk walked out of the company and swore he'd never return, leaving millions of fans heartbroken. But at Survivor Series 2023, everything changed. At that event, Punk shocked everyone by walking back into the company he once swore he'd never come back. And here's the wild part. Instead of telling the entire locker room, Triple H kept Punk's return on an ultra-restricted need-to-know list. And to make the moment even more authentic, he instructed the commentary team to stay completely silent during Punk's entrance. Am I the only one who didn't know WWE ropes aren't as harmless as they look? Most fans have seen wrestlers fly into those ropes thousands of times without ever questioning what they're actually made of. However, if you watch closely during any match, you'll notice something that most people completely overlook. Every single time a wrestler slams into them at full speed, there's a slight metallic sound that echoes throughout the arena. And once you hear it, there's only one explanation. Most fans think WWE uses ordinary ropes, but they're actually heavy-duty steel cables. They're stretched tight to create the right amount of tension, covered with a protective outer layer, and finally wrapped in colored tape to create that iconic look. And what makes this even more interesting is that those ropes weren't always white. For instance, Raw had red ropes, while SmackDown had blue ones, and for over a decade, that alone was enough to tell you which show you were on. But in 2010, the company quietly replaced them with white ropes, and the decision had absolutely nothing to do with how they looked. When WWE went HD in 2008, the production team realized that colored ropes were creating too much visual distraction on camera. Although WWE never officially explained the decision, many fans believe white simply looked cleaner and less distracting on HD screens. Have you ever wondered why The Undertaker never broke character for so long? The real reason might truly shock you. For 3 decades, fans have never seen Mark Calaway break his character as The Undertaker. While other wrestlers would joke around or show their real personalities, Undertaker stayed the same to the point fans genuinely believed he was a real dead man. People had many wild theories about why he stayed in character for so long, but to everyone's surprise, the real reason was simpler than anyone imagined. One day, Undertaker revealed that staying in character wasn't just about contracts or money. It was about keeping the mystery and protecting what made the character special alive. Did you know why WWE secretly banned Randy Orton's punt? The real reason is actually shocking. Here's what happened. Back when Orton was at his most dangerous, every time he dropped to one knee and started that slow walk toward a downed opponent, the entire arena went silent. Because everyone knew that whoever took that boot was gone for months. But behind the scenes, it was becoming a real problem. Because unlike almost every other move in WWE, the punt was almost impossible to fake. Either Orton pulled back so much that it looked completely fake on camera, or kicked someone in the head, which was genuinely dangerous. But the moment that finally forced the company to act happened in 2009, when Orton punted Vince McMahon for real, and after that, Vince made sure it would never happen again. If you've been following WWE events like Raw, the Royal Rumble, or WrestleMania for a while, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with Kane. When you look at his face and see one of his damaged pupils, do you ever wonder what story lies behind it and whether that damaged eye is actually real? According to WWE Storyline, it all goes back to Kane's childhood when a tragic fire at his family's funeral home supposedly left him scarred and permanently damaged one of his eyes, forcing him to hide behind a mask for years. And because of that, millions of fans grew up believing there was something seriously wrong with his eye. But the truth was far less mysterious than anyone imagined. In reality, the damaged eye was nothing more than a white contact lens worn by Kane. It was a simple yet brilliant costume trick that made the character look even more intimidating, and it worked so well that for years, many fans genuinely believed the injury was real. Did you know that WWE's steel steps aren't actually made of steel? For decades, the company has been selling you the idea that those steps weigh 275 pounds and are made of pure metal. But behind that story lies a secret they never wanted you to figure out. If you look closely at them when they get flipped, you can actually notice how thin the sides really are. And obviously, that's not a coincidence. Because all those steps are actually made from aluminum, which weighs about 3 times less than steel, meaning every time a wrestler gets driven into them, it looks brutal, but hurts a fraction of what you think. Did you know that Mark Henry once bent a real frying pan without even breaking a sweat? Back in 2002, Christian and Test were convinced that Mark Henry's strength was nothing more than another WWE gimmick. So one day on SmackDown, they decided to call him out backstage and handed him a real metal frying pan. To their surprise, Henry accepted their challenge and without any hesitation grabbed the pan and bent it in half with both hands. The look on Christian's face said it all, but Test refused to accept that and pulled out a steel bar, certain that even Henry couldn't bend that. But once again, he made it look embarrassingly easy, and that's when Christian, completely humiliated, decided to attack him. On March 31st, 1985, Vince McMahon bet everything on a single event that would either make WWE a mainstream success or break the company forever. At the time, wrestling was still seen as a low-budget attraction that most people didn't take it seriously. But Vince had a vision that wrestling could be so much more. He believed that if he'd combine wrestling with mainstream celebrities and present it as a legitimate entertainment, he could literally rewrite how the world viewed wrestling forever. So at the first main event, Hulk Hogan teamed up with Mr. T to take on Rowdy and Mr. Wonderful. When the event was finally broadcast, it hit over 1 million viewers in just a matter of seconds, making it one of the most watched wrestling events in history. Have you ever wondered why Triple H's face looked like this? Back in 1999, Stone Cold had had enough of Triple stealing his championship. So one night on Monday Night Raw, Austin cornered a winded Hunter backstage and threw him straight into a locker room. But what Hunter didn't know was that Stone had already planted a little surprise for him, and the moment he spotted it, he desperately tried to escape. But unfortunately, Austin slammed the door and walked away laughing. And on the following SmackDown, Hunter appeared completely unrecognizable. I bet you didn't know these things about these wrestlers. Most people assume badass characters like Rhea grew up watching only female wrestlers. But the truth is way more different than anyone imagined. Because at just 15 years old, she stumbled across a random clip of Triple H viciously going after Ric Flair at Survivor Series 2005, and instead of being scared away from it, she got completely hooked on wrestling. Before WWE, Roman was actually a professional football player. He was so good in college that he got signed by the Minnesota Vikings, one of the biggest teams in America. But unfortunately, health issues ended that dream quickly, and Roman then moved to Canada, where he played a full season before finally retiring from football in 2008 and deciding to follow his family's wrestling legacy. Before becoming one of the most feared wrestlers in history, Mark was actually a college basketball player so good that he even once received a basketball scholarship. But that's not even the best thing. When his basketball career didn't work out, Mark went to his local wrestling gym every single week for 8 months, hoping for a chance to prove himself in wrestling. Everyone doubted his decision to leave basketball, but he refused to listen to anyone and kept showing up until he finally earned his opportunity in wrestling. Before chasing her WWE dream, Liv actually went to beauty school to become a hairstylist. She once in an interview even said that doing hair was her backup plan in case wrestling didn't work out. When WWE asked Rhea for 5 name options in 2017, she looked up badass female names and combined 2 things: Rhea from the Greek goddess and mother of gods, with Ripley after Ellen Ripley from movies. Rhea's dream since she was a little girl was to become the most tattooed human ever. But unfortunately, WWE had other plans and forbade her from getting any upper body ink. That's why she usually wears pants in the ring to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Before stepping into WWE, Brock was already a legitimate wrestling champion at the University of Minnesota, dominating college wrestling so hard that even his coach admitted he'd never seen anyone with that combination of speed, power, and technique. Roman dominated WWE for 1,316 days as Universal Champion, making it the 4th longest world title reign in history, and on top of that, the longest championship reign recognized by the company since 1988. Roman has main evented WrestleMania 10 times. That's more than any wrestler in WWE history. When Rhea was asked about her first celebrity crush, she revealed that she had always loved Sylvester Stallone. She once in an interview even admitted she's not sure why, but she just loved all the movies that he's in and his larger-than-life personality. A lot of people don't know this, but for some reason, The Undertaker is afraid of cucumbers. Liv Morgan also holds the shortest Royal Rumble elimination in history, standing at just 8 seconds right before bouncing back to become champion. In 2004, Brock shocked everyone by walking away from WWE to play for the NFL, and despite not playing football since high school, he made it through the entire Minnesota Vikings training camp and even played in preseason games. When Liv Morgan first joined WWE, she sent a bunch of name ideas ideal to her character, but unfortunately most of them were rejected. So at one point, WWE gave her 2 better name choices, Liv Morgan or Liv Gallows. And even though at first she didn't really like it, we all know which name she picked. Rhea made history as WWE's first female Australian champion, but her next achievements shocked more than one wrestler. She became the youngest Grand Slam champion at just 26 years old, and on top of that, at the 2023 Royal Rumble, she came as first into the ring and fought for over an hour with 29 other female wrestlers. Before joining WWE, Liv was working as a Hooters waitress and always told people about her dream of becoming a wrestler. But one day, someone who used to manage the location noticed her passion and connected her with Joe DeFranco, also known as Triple H's strength coach. Joe was so impressed that he personally reached out to WWE, and thanks to him, Liv's life has changed forever. On SmackDown 2019, Brock shocked everyone by setting the fastest WWE Championship victory by defeating Kofi in just 7 seconds. Did you know how much a WWE Championship belt actually costs? The real price tag may truly shock you. Over the years, every single time a wrestler won a match and raised a championship above his head, millions were left asking the same question. Did my favorite wrestler really sacrifice his body just for a worthless piece of painted metal? And for a long time, nobody could answer that question. Until one day, a group of fans decided to dig deeper and discovered that those belts are very likely made from zinc with a thin coat of gold paint on top of it. But the craziest part? According to insiders, they're estimated to cost between $6,000 to $8,000. This female wrestler has a finisher so iconic that it destroyed wrestling forever. It all started in 2019 when Asuka was still a part of Kabuki Warriors. One day, as she stood next to Paige on Monday Night Raw, she went off script in the most savage way by spitting her very first mist in the most humiliating way. But what happened next took things to a whole new level of insanity. Every wrestler started chasing their own dirty finisher, and that's when WWE had to stop it before it took over the whole ring. Did you know that if you look closely at Brock Lesnar, you'll spot something even WWE can't explain? Most fans never notice it, but behind Brock Lesnar's smile, there's a dark secret no one talks about. If you look closer at his bottom teeth, you can see the damage like they've survived something most people couldn't. Brock never told us the full story why and how that happened, but there are a few wild theories going around. One theory says that after decades in a ring, Brock pushed his body so far that even his jaw turned against him. Another theory says Brock's teeth look so dark because of internal damage. Let me explain. When a tooth gets repeatedly damaged, the nerves inside can die over time. When that happens, the tooth starts to darken from the inside out. And unfortunately, if the damage runs that deep, it's almost impossible to fix it. Why did Sami Zayn treat the bloodline like his real family, only to betray them later? At the start of 2022, Sami Zayn was just another wrestler on SmackDown with nothing special going on, until one night he approached Roman Reigns asking for help against Drew McIntyre and promised that in return, he would do everything Roman told him to do. And even though Jey Uso never trusted him from day one, Sami kept showing up, and every single time he proved him wrong. Until one night on SmackDown, Roman decided to test his loyalty by demanding that Sami take off his bloodline shirt. But once again, Sami passed his test, and Roman handed him a brand new one. But Roman wasn't done testing him, and at Survivor Series, Sami had to choose to help the bloodline or his childhood friend Kevin Owens. And this time, he even surprised Jey himself by helping Roman. But the unexpected turn came at the Royal Rumble, when Roman ordered Sami to hit an already helpless Kevin Owens with a steel chair. This time, however, something inside him snapped and he hit the Roman instead. Are WWE wrestlers actually rich? Well, the company has 5 pay tiers. Here's how it works. The first tier is NXT level, meaning you get $30,000 to $100,000 a year just to train and hope someone notices you exist. Later, as they climb the rankings and make it to the main roster, they hit Tier 2, where the minimum guarantee is roughly $350,000 a year just for showing up at events every week. But the real money starts in the next stage, where names like Cody Rhodes or Seth Rollins can pull anywhere from $1 to $5 million a year. Then there are future Hall of Famers, making anywhere from $5 to $15 million a year. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the final stage is the Hollywood tier, where once you get there, the sky is the limit. Why did Shawn Michaels love looking at himself so much that he made his manager carry a mirror to the ring? Back in the 90s, when Shawn Michaels became one of the most hated guys on a roster, he didn't just walk to the ring like every other wrestler, because every time before his match, his manager Sherry would carry a giant heart-shaped mirror to the ring for him. Not because anyone asked her to do it, but because Michaels genuinely refused to compete until he double-checked his hair before a match. And while his opponent was already standing in the ring waiting, Shawn was staring at himself like the fight hadn't even crossed his mind. Simply because for Shawn, good appearance wasn't a sign of vanity, it was a weapon. Did you know that Roman Reigns once silenced the entire WWE universe with just one appearance? Before Roman Reigns became the tribal chief we all know today, there was a time when the same fans who cheer for him now wanted nothing more than to see him fail. Because back then, walking to the ring meant nothing more than getting booed by thousands who simply refused to accept him. But on Monday Night Raw 2018, everything changed when Roman walked to the ring with his Universal Championship. But instead of cutting his usual promo, he looked straight at the crowd and said something no one was prepared for.
My real name is Joe, and I've been living with leukemia for 11 years. And unfortunately, it's back, and I'm gonna have to relinquish the Universal Championship.
However, the real turning point came 3 months later when he came back to the ring, looked at the same fans who had booed him, and said something that made the entire arena go wild.
I'm in remission, y'all.
Have you ever wondered why Rey Mysterio kept protecting his son even though Dom betrayed him over and over again? When Dominic first stepped into WWE, everyone saw him as Rey's little kid carrying the Mysterio legacy on his shoulders. But over time, Dominic slowly turned his back on his family, joined Judgment Day, and eventually even dared his own father to fight him at WrestleMania. And no matter how far Dominic pushed him, Rey could never bring himself to hurt him the same way. Not because he was afraid of him, but because a part of him was still trying to protect the kid he used to know. And to understand why, we have to go all the way back to 2005 when Eddie Guerrero stood right in front of young Dominic, looked him dead in the eyes, and told him that Rey wasn't his real father. After hearing those words, Dominic's face dropped, and he immediately turned to Rey and asked him this.
Is it true, Dad? Is it really true?
Unfortunately, Rey didn't answer his question, leaving Dominic heartbroken. Sometimes ticket sales for live events are lower than expected, and large sections of an arena can end up looking surprisingly empty, but you rarely notice it while watching on TV. Wanting to keep their reputation of being highly in demand, WWE is notorious for saying a show is sold out, even if it's not. Over the years, some fans have questioned WWE's sold-out announcements, especially when photos and videos from inside the arena appeared to show more empty seats than expected. As you probably already guessed, TV broadcasts naturally focus on the most crowded sections of the arena, which can create a way different impression than what people see inside the venue. And thanks to social media, fans often post their own footage from events, leading to debates about how full certain shows really were. A similar discussion happened after Royal Rumble 2026, when some fans claimed the arena looked emptier than expected. However, others pointed out that the LED lights installed behind the seats made large sections of the crowd appear darker on camera, creating the illusion of empty rows. John Cena became a millionaire after being insulted by The Rock, because in 2012, during his heated rivalry with him, Rock decided to take things even further by showing up on the Titantron and challenging Cena to meet him face-to-face like a real man. But instead of the real John, a young version of him appeared and started doing everything he would do. After the fan finished, Rock immediately went after John in every possible way. And just when it seemed like he had said enough, he pulled out a box of Fruity Pebbles and handed it to the kid. And here's the wild part. For most wrestlers, being buried like that would have broken their image. But for Cena, it did the exact opposite, because weeks later, he shot a commercial that made him a fortune. After all these years, fans have noticed an interesting pattern. Sometimes if you look closely at a wrestler's eyes during a pinfall, you can actually tell whether a kickout is coming. The theory is simple. Since communication in the ring can be difficult, some wrestlers keep their eyes open in order to follow the referee's count and perfectly time their breakaway. But like every wrestling trick, it doesn't work every time. WWE occasionally uses those expectations against the audience. The best-known example took place at WrestleMania 30, during the match between The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, when everyone was expecting another last-second escape. But this time, the count went all the way to 3. I bet at least once in your life you've wondered how a wrestling ring survives years of extreme matches without falling apart. Most people imagine that a wrestling ring is filled with soft padding, but unfortunately, that's far from the truth. Underneath the canvas is a massive steel frame covered by wooden boards and only a thin layer of padding. That's exactly why wrestlers say that the falls hurt much more than most fans realize. To keep the ring looking presentable, WWE regularly cleans and replaces the canvas as needed, especially after particularly messy matches. This wrestler can do something the human brain was never designed to do. According to studies under extreme pressure, the average human heart rate spikes to over 160 beats per minute. But Randy Orton was never just a normal guy, because fans who slowed down the footages of his legendary RKO noticed something unusual. Most people never notice it, but before Randy delivers his move out of nowhere, his entire body seems to go completely cold, to the point where some compare this level of focus to what you see in highly trained soldiers. But even though Randy never confirmed he has such an ability, the raw footage still makes fans speculate. Back in 1995, Steve signed with WWF and got a brand new character called the Ringmaster, teaming up with $1 Million Man based entirely around the idea that he'd dominate the ring like nobody else. WWF genuinely believed in the concept, but Austin never did, and at the time, he simply didn't have much of a choice but to go along with it. Convinced he was wasting his potential, Stone eventually demanded a change, and creative came back with nothing but a list of names that had actually been floated for him, none of which stuck, leaving Austin confused with no character at all. Later that same evening, Steve landed on a documentary about a real-life hitman also known as the Iceman. Something about it stuck in his head and started picturing a character built around being ruthless, cold, and completely remorseless. And just as the idea started forming, his wife appeared with a cup of tea, telling him to drink it before it went stone cold. And the second she said it, he knew that was it. In the late 90s, fans started noticing something unusual about Kane. When he debuted in 1997, WWE wanted him to look like the one man capable of matching The Undertaker in every way. But there was one problem. He still didn't look as overwhelming as The Undertaker. To solve that issue, the company equipped Kane with specially designed boots that added a few extra inches to his height, making him seem even bigger and more terrifying whenever the two stood face to face. Do you know why WWE quietly ended Bray Wyatt's Fiend persona? The real reason is actually shocking. Here's what happened. At Super Showdown 2020, Goldberg stepped into the ring with The Fiend for the Universal Championship, and after 3 minutes, he walked out as a new champion. The backlash was instant, but what made it even more controversial was that Goldberg himself admitted he expected to lose. And here's the wild part. The only reason the finish was changed was to set up one match between him and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and to make that happen, they needed him holding the title. You have to admit, when Brock Lesnar showed up on SmackDown driving a forklift and flipped a car with the entire bloodline trapped inside, it looked like something straight out of a movie. But have you ever wondered how WWE actually managed to pull off a stunt like that without anyone getting hurt? Although the company never publicly disclosed all the details about this scene, fans quickly spotted several clues suggesting that this stunt was much more staged than it initially appeared. The biggest indication was hidden right in the footage itself. A shot shows the forks of a forklift piercing straight through the side window of the car, and judging by the way it happened, there's a good chance the vehicle was empty at that very moment. The broadcast then cuts to another frame where suddenly the bloodline are sitting in the same car. That shift between angles is exactly what convinced fans the whole thing was filmed in pieces, with the actual dangerous part of the trick being performed on an empty vehicle and the reaction shots filmed separately afterwards. Thanks to the camera work, perfect timing, and Brock Lesnar's genuine intensity, WWE managed to make one of its most ambitious vehicle stunts look completely real. Did you know that Rhea Ripley's most iconic move was almost never discovered? Most fans assume that when Mommy joined WWE, she already knew what her signature move would be. But unfortunately, for a long time, she had no idea what it would be. And that's why at her first performance at Mae Young Classic, she was using a completely different finisher nowhere near to the Riptide we know. But the more she used it, the more she knew something had to change. So she went back to the drawing board, and one day during a training session, her coach started going through random moves until he suddenly landed on the pump handle drop. And from that moment on, the Riptide was born. Why did Kofi Kingston fall to his knees and almost cry right after winning his match? And you'll be shocked knowing Kofi wasn't the only one. Okay, but what exactly happened? For 11 long years, Kofi Kingston was one of the most talented and hardworking wrestlers on the roster, but every single time he got close to a championship match, Vince McMahon personally made sure it never happened. Not because Kofi wasn't good enough, but because in Vince's eyes, he didn't deserve to be the face of the biggest wrestling federation. But in 2019, everything changed when the fans got so desperate to see him finally win that even Vince had no choice but to give him a title opportunity at WrestleMania. And when that day finally came, Daniel Bryan did everything in his power to ensure he couldn't win that night. But no matter how many times it looked like it was over, he kept getting back until he secured his first ever victory. Many WWE superstars are known for signature moves that became inseparable from their characters. But what most fans don't realize is that each of them has its own hidden secrets. Admittedly, the Tombstone Piledriver is one of the most dangerous-looking finishing moves in WWE history, which explains why very few wrestlers have been trusted to perform it. And the whole secret behind it, which may surprise many, is that the wrestler taking it keeps his head raised just enough to avoid direct contact with the mat. Despite that, the move still requires perfect timing and trust from both wrestlers. In fact, when Undertaker first performed the Tombstone early in his career, it reportedly came far closer to going wrong than anyone expected. And because of the risks involved, WWE has always treated the move as one of its most protected finishers. The pedigree wasn't something Triple H copied from another wrestler. He actually developed the move during a training session with his coach. The original idea was simple: place the opponent's head between his knees, hook their arms, and drive them face first into the mat. Over the years, Triple H further refined this technique by loosening his arm grip just before the impact, which allowed his opponents to land more safely while still making the move look devastating. What made the stunner so effective wasn't the kick Austin used to set it up. In fact, that kick was often just a signal that the move was about to happen. But the real magic lay in the reaction. As soon as Austin got into position, his opponent had to bounce backwards and make the impact look as dynamic as possible. That's why some of the most memorable stunners owe their fame to the incredible sells rather than the move itself. Many fans believe that Roman Reigns invented the Superman punch, but this technique actually originates from mixed martial arts, and its true form is designed to disguise the punch by making it look as if a kick is about to follow. Roman adapted this concept to wrestling and turned it into one of his signature moves, and what makes it look so powerful isn't the strike itself, but the timing of the jump. By throwing his entire body forward, Roman gives the impression that all his energy is striking his opponent directly, making this move seem way more powerful than a regular strike. Did you know WWE uses a secret trick to make every slam sound twice as powerful as it actually is? For decades, nobody understood why, but even wrestlers admitted that inside the arena, the impact sounds far quieter than they do on television. And for a long time, no one could explain it, until fans started digging deeper and discovered that under the ring, the company places a full audio system that captures everything from below and then amplifies it behind the scenes. But here's where it gets interesting. There's actually a person whose full-time job is to stay invisible under the ring. And for all those years, Vince McMahon made sure no camera exposed them, until one day, fan captured everything in 4K. Have you ever wondered which superstar Rhea Ripley had a massive crush on before wrestling? And trust me, it's not the person you'd expect. Many of the superstars currently performing in WWE grew up watching wrestling, so it's not uncommon for today's roster to have crushes on their idols who first drew them to this sport. Growing up in Australia, Rhea wasn't just a casual fan. She was completely obsessed with one specific character to the point she analyzed every single of his appearances on screen. And when Kevin Hart finally asked her about it on his show, she immediately admitted that she loves The Miz for his cocky attitude. As y'all remember on SmackDown 2004, Big Show chokeslammed Kurt Angle straight off a 20-foot ledge. And to this day, people still question how that stunt was actually pulled off, especially when at that time, Kurt had serious neck problems. Many fans have long believed that the person who actually took the fall wasn't Kurt at all, but his older brother Eric Angle, who was also a wrestler and looked remarkably similar to him. If you watch the footage closely, the camera cuts away at the exact moment of impact, and when it returns, some fans have pointed out that the person on the ground appears slightly different from Kurt. But without any official confirmation, the mystery has never been solved, which explains why some fans still speculate to this day. Now, speaking of things that look far more dangerous than they actually are, on one of the episodes of Raw 2021, Alexa Bliss closed out the show by throwing a fireball directly into Randy Orton's face, and for days afterwards, fans couldn't stop asking the same question. How was something like that even possible? Now, many fans believed the segment was pre-recorded, but what most people didn't realize was that the fireball itself wasn't a special effect or CGI. It was actually real. Like countless times before during The Fiend's run, the lights went out, and many fans believed that sudden darkness played a major role in helping WWE pull off the effect. The fireball itself was most likely made of flash paper, a special material that has long been used by both magicians and wrestlers. When lit, it produces a spectacular burst of flame, then disappears almost immediately, creating the illusion of something far more dangerous than it actually is. But here's what makes this whole thing even better. Alexa Bliss wasn't the first wrestler to throw a fireball. That honor belongs to Kane, who had a strange habit of hitting the wrong people. And if you've been watching WWE long enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Have you ever noticed that during a match, referees always seem to get involved at the most random moments? Most fans think the ref is warning wrestlers for breaking the rules, but that's not even close to what's actually happening. Let me explain. What every fan don't realize is that every referee has an earpiece connected directly to the backstage production team, and the moment someone in that room decides the match needs to end or change direction, that referee doesn't break character or stop the match. Instead, he just casually walks over to a wrestler and acts like he's warning him, but in reality, he just whispers what he needs to do next. Back in the 80s, WWE was known for pulling off some of the most outrageous moments, and the characters themselves were much crazier than the ones most fans are used to today. Few wrestlers represented this era better than Jake Roberts, who became famous for bringing a real snake into the ring. Jake debuted in WWE in 1986 with a gimmick that nobody had ever seen before. Dark, psychological, built entirely around mind games rather than raw strength, and his snake wasn't just a prop he carried to the ring, it was a reflection of his character. And eventually, that snake became part of one of the most chilling moments of Jake's entire career. In 1991, during his feud with Randy Savage, Jake tied him to the ropes and let his snake bite him on the arm. What most people don't realize is that the bite wasn't faked, forcing Jake to physically pull it off while pretending on camera that he was trying to make it bite even harder. The cobra had been devenomized beforehand, but the incident was still serious enough to spark all kinds of rumors, including claims that Savage fell ill in the days that followed. And according to one long-standing wrestling story, the snake itself died shortly after the incident. By comparison, today we have Mr. Iguana, a Mexican luchador who carries a plush iguana puppet named La Yesca and uses it to distract his opponents during matches. But where Jake Roberts had people genuinely terrified of what that snake might actually do, Mr. Iguana has a stuffed toy that somehow gets a bigger reaction from the crowd than most finishing moves. Did you know the real reason behind Kevin Owens attacking Vince McMahon in the ring? Back in 2017, Kevin Owens was in the middle of one of the most personal feuds of his career against Shane McMahon. And one night on SmackDown, Vince McMahon himself decided to step into the ring to handle things personally. At first, Vince got right into Kevin's face and started doing everything he could to make sure Kevin would eventually snap. And the moment Vince extended his hand, Kevin hit him so hard that blood immediately started pouring down his face. But the wildest part didn't even happen inside a ring, because as Kevin was walking up the entrance ramp, he turned around for 1 second and furious Stephanie was standing right there inches from his face, telling him to get the back. If you watched WWE in 2006, there's a good chance you remember the moment Vince and Shane McMahon tried to leave the arena, only for their limousine to break down suddenly. But have you ever wondered how they made it look like the entire rear axle just ripped off the car? While WWE never publicly revealed how the stunt was done, the limousine was almost certainly modified in advance, creating the illusion that it had been completely ripped apart. Let's now go back a few hours to that same night. After Vince called the police to have DX arrested for destroying his private jet, he expected to watch the whole thing unfold on the Titantron. But instead, he found Triple H and Shawn Michaels standing on the roof at WWE headquarters with a huge DX logo covering the front of the building. At the time, plenty of fans assumed the logo had simply been added in post-production, but the reality was far more impressive than anyone imagined. WWE has never publicly revealed exactly how the effect was created, but something on that scale would have taken an enormous amount of planning. By 2006, the technology already existed to produce massive printed or painted displays that could be installed on site and filmed from the perfect angle, creating the illusion that the entire building had been spray painted. Why did Mick Foley willingly let Edge spear him through a flaming table without even complaining about it? At WrestleMania 22, Edge and Mick sat down before the match and came up with a finish where Edge would spear him through a table that was going to be completely on fire. No one who watched that event could understand why a legend of his caliber would choose to put himself in such danger. But the real reason goes back to something fans had quietly figured out years before. Every wrestler who ever destroyed Mick Foley in a hardcore match went on to become one of the biggest names in WWE history, which definitely wasn't a coincidence. That's why Mick made sure to establish Edge as the next big thing. Back in the wrestling sleepwalk era, everything was just boring and predictable. Most shows were recorded weeks ahead of time, edited to perfection, and on top of that, fans always knew what next would happen. And that's why Vince decided to do something that will genuinely change wrestling forever. He launched a Monday Night Raw, first wrestling live show without any flashy edits and cover-ups. At first, people were very skeptical about it, but when the first episode finally went live in 1993, no one expected how good it would be. Why did Chuck Norris help The Undertaker win a match? To understand why, we have to go back to 1994 when Yokozuna and The Undertaker had a casket match that completely spiraled out of control. That night, Yokozuna's manager hired nearly 10 wrestlers to storm straight to the ring and force him to lose a match. Luckily, a rematch was announced at Survivor Series that same year, with one thing being certain: they couldn't let history repeat itself. So to make sure it won't happen, they invited Chuck Norris to stay ringside. At first it worked, but when Jeff Jarrett decided to mess with him, Chuck finished him with a devastating high kick, allowing Taker to win a match. Some of the most dangerous-looking moments in wrestling are actually simple to pull off. Let's take Kane, for instance, who somehow walked away without a single visible burn after Shane McMahon kicked him straight into a burning dumpster. While the stunt looked completely out of control, almost every part of it was carefully planned. Smart camera angles and precise timing did most of the work, making the entire scene look far more dangerous than it really was. And for Kane, this wasn't even an unfamiliar situation. The Federation had previously built entire storylines around fire as part of his Inferno matches, where flames surrounded the ring and played a key role in the match itself. Why has it become so difficult to see Rhea Ripley in WWE again? To understand why, we have to go back to Clash in Italy, where Rhea Ripley defended her women's championship against Jade Cargill in a brutal 17-minute match. As everyone already knows, she walked out as champion that night, but the celebration didn't last long as the cameras caught that something was wrong. Because on the following week on SmackDown, Rhea came out wearing a black brace on her knee, confirming the injury. Unfortunately, the injury was so serious that the Federation had to change its creative plans, resulting in her being quietly removed from the official Night of Champions and replaced by Tiffany Stratton. Now with Charlotte Flair already demanding a title shot at SummerSlam, the only question remaining is whether Mommy will even have a title to defend when she finally returns to the ring. Have you ever wondered why Dominic Mysterio is called Dirty Dom, even though for months almost nobody took him seriously? When Dom first joined the Judgment Day in 2022, the entire WWE universe treated him like a joke because whenever things got tough, he would disappear straight behind Rhea and let her handle everything while he stood there watching from a safe distance. But on Christmas Eve 2022, everything changed when Dom showed up uninvited at Rey Mysterio's house, started an all-out war with his own family, and ended up getting arrested. Instead of coming back embarrassed, Dom returned with a completely different attitude. He started cheating without a second thought, lying straight to the referee's face and doing whatever it took to win. And that's when even Mommy stopped calling him Dom. These are WWE wrestlers before and after getting into the ring. Young John Cena looked like a college bully, especially with this iconic buzz cut that set him apart from others. But now, after over 20 years in the ring, he looks more like a superhero with a smile that runs the arena. But even wilder transformation came from Dominic Mysterio, who went from being baby-faced kid to a guy who somehow gets more heat just by walking into the ring. But the most jaw-dropping transformation came from Rhea Ripley, who literally went from a no-name to the most intimidating woman in history. WWE takes the physical toll of its performers very seriously. Behind every high-flying move and bone-crushing slam, there's a system designed to protect the athletes. Under its talent wellness program, every wrestler undergoes regular health screening, including cardiovascular tests, annual physicals, and neurocognitive evaluations. As part of that, the company uses impact testing, which measures memory, processing speed, reaction time, and other essential metrics to detect brain injuries. When someone shows symptoms of a concussion such as dizziness, memory loss, or confusion, the medical team does not rush to return them to action. Doctors compare the results of the impact test administered after an injury with the wrestler's baseline test results. And even if the results look good, the athlete undergoes stress tests in which he performs movements typical of a match in the ring, recreates the physical stresses associated with combat, and returns to competition only after all symptoms have subsided. Referees also play a key role in this safety system. If a ref notices a dangerous situation or believes a wrestler may have actually been injured, he will raise both arms in an X to signal to initiate actual medical intervention. The Federation has also changed its rules to reduce the number of head injuries. For instance, in 2010, the use of folding metal chairs to strike other wrestlers in the head was officially banned, and intentional strikes may result in fines or suspensions. According to Triple H, referees, producers, and medical staff are regularly trained to recognize warning signs and respond immediately if something goes wrong. It's also worth noting that the company has supported research into long-term brain health, including donating more than $1 million to studies involving CTE, a condition associated with repeated head injuries. Have you ever wondered why Roman Reigns always stares dead into the camera and says, "Acknowledge me"? It all started in 2020 when Roman sat down with Paul Heyman and WWE's creative team to plan the final chapter of his storyline against Jey Uso. At that point, nobody in that room was even looking for a catchphrase. They were trying to figure out what Roman actually wanted from his own family. And that's when Roman said that deep down, all he really wants is for Jey to finally acknowledge him. And according to Paul Heyman, the entire room instantly knew they just struck gold. Back in 2002, John Cena shocked everyone with his debut against Kurt Angle. But despite his first strong impression, management felt like he was missing something. And obviously, it didn't take long before his WWE career was seconds from being over. But one day everything changed when Stephanie McMahon caught him freestyling. In that moment, she instantly saw huge potential. And right after that, Stephanie decided to put him on SmackDown in a rap segment with her. And from that night on, John Cena became one of the best WWE wrestlers in history. Have you ever wondered why The Undertaker feared only one wrestler? The real reason might truly shock you. Let me explain. The same guy everyone was afraid of. How can he be scared of anyone? For years, Undertaker was the most intimidating force in wrestling, who had defeated every legend or a giant who ever dared to face him. Honestly, even his dark presence alone could silence the whole arena. But in 1997, during a brutal Hell in a Cell match against Shawn Michaels, everything changed. The match was intense with both men locked inside a massive cage, until suddenly the lights went off and the arena fell into darkness. For a moment, no one could see a damn thing, but then a loud fire explosion hit the stage, and out from the smoke, a 7-foot-tall monster walked straight to the ring. That monster was none other than his brother Kane, who without any hesitation tore the Hell in a Cell door and stood face to face with him. Back in the day, every single wrestler who stepped into the ring with Cesaro walked back through the curtain saying the exact same thing. "Let me perform with him one more time." And Cena was no different. Because right after working with him, he walked straight to Vince and told him that Cesaro deserves way more than what he's getting. But for some reason, even that wasn't enough to convince him. Because the only excuse he ever had was his promos. But the moment they paired him with Paul Heyman, that excuse completely fell apart. And all of a sudden, Cesaro was unstoppable on the mic too. And the craziest part is that he never even needed that excuse, because Cesaro fluently speaks 5 languages, something almost nobody on the entire roster could ever say. He literally checked every single box to become the face of WWE, and to this day, nobody can explain why Vince never made it happen. Before every match, AJ Lee would take a shirt and cut it with scissors, claiming this helped her relax her mind and concentrate. For her, this had a therapeutic effect that helped her push herself to the max, and apparently this ritual worked perfectly because she delivered some of the most spectacular matches in WWE history. Brie Bella confirmed that Nikki knows how to calm her down if she's overly nervous, and the way they did it became one of the strangest rituals in wrestling. Before every match, they slap each other's backside before heading to the ring. Booker T usually starts his pre-match ritual around 5 o'clock by meditating for 1 full hour. Then he would warm up his body to its peak by jumping rope for 30 minutes, doing 300 push-ups and a couple hundred sit-ups just to get warmed up. And finally, he topped it all off with a couple of energy drinks, getting him ready to launch into the ring. While most wrestlers follow strict diets, Bianca genuinely eats pizza the night before big matches as her good luck ritual. She even revealed in interviews that she did it before winning the 2021 Royal Rumble, calling it her secret victory weapon. Before every match, Rikishi would always make sure to use the bathroom to avoid any embarrassing moments performing his signature move. And on top of that, many wrestlers admitted it was a serious risk if he ever stepped into the ring without doing it first. To hype himself up, Goldberg would legitimately headbutt lockers, walls, and doors before his entrance. This obviously backfired multiple times when he accidentally cut himself open, including a famous incident where he walked out to the ring bleeding from hitting a door too hard. Have you ever wondered why Rey Mysterio never takes off his mask outside the ring? The real reason is actually shocking. Let me explain. Most fans think it's just part of his look, but the real reason goes much deeper than that. In Lucha Libre tradition, a mask isn't just a costume, it's your entire identity. And if it's ever fully removed during a real stipulation match, you can never legally put it back on again. Back in 1999, Rey found out the hard way when he lost his mask in WCW to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, forcing him to compete unmasked for the next 3 years. But in 2002, everything changed when Vince McMahon personally appealed to the Lucha Libre Commission for permission to let Rey wear his mask again. Surprisingly, they agreed, setting one unbreakable rule. If Rey ever lost the mask again, there would be no second chances. And that's exactly why moments like Randy Orton ripping off his mask hit different for Lucha fans. Because for Rey, losing it again wouldn't just end a storyline, it would end who he is forever. Have you ever wondered how much a WWE Hall of Fame ring actually costs? Without a doubt, this trophy is the most prestigious honor in all of professional wrestling. It's valued not just because legends like Kurt Angle or Goldberg held it, but because of its insanely high manufacturing cost. For instance, WWE Championship belts are worth around $6,000 to $8,000. A Money in the Bank briefcase victory gets you a prop valued at $1,000. But these awards cannot even compare to the price of a Hall of Fame ring. According to insiders, each ring is custom-made with real diamonds, crafted from solid gold and personalized to each superstar, making this ultimate symbol of wrestling worth approximately $25,000. Which fact surprised you the most? Feel free to leave your opinion below, and if you're interested in the craziest WWE brawls, I cover them in this video.